Hey friend, please subscribe and like the video. 1 second for you, a big deal for me. I was halfway down the stairs when I realized I'd been listening to my wife hum. It was the old tune she always fell back on when she was excited. 3 notes up, 2 down, floaty and light like river water in June. I know because I've heard that hum for 12 years. New job interviews, anniversary dinners, the day we signed papers for our tiny house with the slanted porch. That hum had always meant good things. That morning, it meant a suitcase. "Do you have the slide clicker?" I asked, lingering in the bedroom doorway. Conference rooms never have the right dongles. Nora looked over her shoulder and smiled, that quick, photogenic smile the students at our high school adored. "Already in the front pocket," she said. "Don't you dare reorganize my bag, Jack." I finally learned from the master. I laughed because that's our rhythm. I'm the meticulous one, the physics teacher who labels every bin and still writes attendance with a fountain pen. She's the art teacher who can turn a shoebox into a diorama that makes life feel bigger than the space it's in. 4 days, she said, zipping the suitcase. Chicago is all workshops and keynote panels and terrible hotel coffee. I'll call you every night. Promise. I kissed her forehead and smelled jasmine and something warmer I couldn't place. She'd used the new perfume I gave her for our anniversary. A little expensive for us, but she'd saved it for special. I told myself a professional conference counted. When I watched her drive off, I had that odd leftover feeling you get in a house after the refrigerator stops humming. Silence that's too quiet. I made coffee and sat with a stack of junior exams on projectile motion. Somewhere between question 5 and 6, why a ball launched at 30 degrees lands at the same speed it left, I got the text. Unknown number. Your wife isn't in Chicago. Check the guest list at the Blue Harbor. Blue Harbor isn't in Chicago. It's a luxury beach resort, 2.5 hours east. I stared at the words long enough for the coffee to go cold. My first impulse was to laugh it off. People scam, people troll. And yet, I wish I could say I didn't open my laptop. I wish I could say I deleted the message, pushed my chair in, and went back to grading. But when you teach teenagers for 20 years, you pick up a sixth sense for when a story doesn't quite add up. The Blue Harbor site had a public events and conferences portal. I typed name, Midwest Arts Educators Retreat. Attendee, Nora Caldwell. The page blinked. No attendee found. I retyped, slower, the same result. My heart did that irritating stutter it hasn't done since my father's bypass. "Stop it," I said out loud to no one. "Stop inventing monsters." I opened our shared calendar instead. A block of blue ran across the week. Chicago Conference. Nested underneath was a second hidden line I only saw because I'm me and I color code everything. A&M Special Project. A&M. We hired a new PE teacher in January, Adam Mercer, tall, track coach. The kids love him. He and Nora had been collaborating on a Wellness Through Art grant proposal. A&M. I told myself it was nothing. And still, my thumb had already moved to her office door. I wasn't snooping, I told myself. I was looking for the conference packet, flight confirmations, hotel details, anything to quiet that buzzing in my head. Nora's desk was neat in the way of someone who tidies in swirls, piles, ribbons, a mug full of paintbrushes splayed like a bouquet. I opened the middle drawer for the itinerary. I found a postcard instead. A watercolor of a red umbrella on wet sand, signed on the back with a rushed hand I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you at the harbor. You make everything brighter." A. I stood very still, the kind of still that makes a house creak louder. I don't remember sitting on the edge of our bed. I don't remember the 10 minutes where the room went both too small and too far away. What I remember is the old hum in my head turning into a high, thin whistle, like wind through a crack. Then I did the thing every betrayed person does the first time. I searched for a reason to unknow what I knew. Her Instagram, nothing unusual. The school email, no sent messages she shouldn't have sent. The old silly habit she has of leaving sticky notes in her paperback novels, none in the one on her nightstand. What pulled me out of it wasn't a clue. It was the alarm on my phone for third period. I had 30 teenagers and a lab on conservation of momentum waiting for me in 40 minutes. Whatever hurricane had just blown a hole in my roof, class still started at 10:15. I packed my bag like a man underwater, walked to my car, and made it 3 blocks before I pulled over. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I called a former student. "Sarah?" I said when she answered. "I could use your mind." Sarah Chen is 27 and works cyber investigations at the county office. Brilliant kid. The kind who asks better questions than you teach. 5 years ago, when her mother got sick, I drove across town after school to drop off soups and lab notes and talk Sarah through stoichiometry on the porch. People remember who shows up for them. I didn't think I'd ever need her to return the favor. "I'm coming over," she said, and hung up. She arrived 10 minutes later with a tablet and that quiet face she makes when she's worried. I showed her the text, the calendar, the postcard. She listened the way my students don't, without interrupting, without telling me the ending she assumes is coming. "I can ping her phone," she said finally, "if she didn't toggle off location services." I hesitated. There's a version of me that hears my father's voice in my head. "Don't be a snoop, Jack. Be a man." But there's also the version that knows I can't walk into homeroom at 10:15 and pretend not to know the house is on fire. "Do it," I said. Sarah tapped and slid and squinted. Then she turned the screen toward me. A blue dot pulsed on the coast, not Chicago. Blue harbor. Ocean, white balconies, 5-star reviews. The kind of place we joked about but never booked. The kind of place you go when you're celebrating something you don't want to explain to anyone who knows you. I sat back. My hands had started to shake without asking me. "What do you want to do?" Sarah asked, voice low. "Drive," I said. "If there's a cliff, I'd rather look over it than imagine it." She put a hand on my arm. "You don't have to go alone." "I wasn't going to ask," I said, "but I hoped you'd say that." On my kitchen table, I left a note for the substitute, 3 neatly printed lab instructions, and a lie I hated myself for writing. Family emergency. Please run video number 7 after the worksheet. I packed a duffel, then put it back, then packed it again. At the door, I reached for my car keys and did one last strange thing. The final instinct of a man who spends his life calculating angles before he throws. I set up a private live stream link on my phone, non-public, unlisted, connected to the school's PTA Facebook in case I needed proof for systems that only believe what they see. It felt wrong. It felt like insurance. It felt like both. We drove. I don't remember the first hour. People talk in songs about the sound of a heart breaking. For me, it was the repetition of white lines on asphalt and the hum of Sarah's worn tires and the quiet of a friend who knows that sometimes the best thing to say is nothing at all. At the resort gate, everything smelled like salt and lemon and money. The valet smiled the smile every valet smiles when he sees a modest sedan whip into a circle meant for German engineering. "Reservation for Chen," Sarah said at the front desk. She was all ease and light banter. I stood half a step behind her, head down, one hand on the strap of my bag like a schoolboy waiting for his mother to talk to the principal. We rode the elevator to 7 in a mirror-paneled box where I met my own eyes and didn't recognize them. Room 712, our room. Room 714, Nora's dot on Sarah's map, was next door. We heard them before we saw them. I thought the first dagger would be whispered sweetness. It wasn't. It was a joke said too loud by a man who didn't worry about walls. "Poor Jack," he said, chuckling. "Still thinks PD means personal development, not private date." Nora's laugh was a sound I'd loved since 2009. It sounded different when it wasn't for me. Sarah didn't squeeze my arm. She didn't tell me to breathe. She just looked at me like a person looks at a cliff before they jump and said, "When you're ready." I knocked. There is a moment in every life where the hallway of who you were ends and the doorway into who you will be opens. It often looks more ordinary than anyone warns you, just a frame and a handle and the click of a latch. Nora opened the door in a robe I'd seen once, on an anniversary, under softer lights. Her face drained of color so fast I worried she'd faint. "Jack," she said, and my name sounded like a question without a question mark. Behind her was a man in hotel shorts with a gym rat chest and the surprised face boys wear when freshmen catch them sneaking off campus. Adam Mercer. Of course it was Adam. People never choose the villain you'd expect. They choose the easiest applause. "I thought you were in Chicago," I said softly. "Jack, She reached for the belt of her robe like it could cinch her story tighter. "This isn't what it looks like." I finished for her because the cliches show up on their own. "Do you know how tired those words sound when you say them in a hallway?" Adam recovered faster, or pretended to. "We should talk inside," he said. "This is a private matter." "No," I said. "It was private yesterday. This morning it became my life." Nora put a hand on the door, blocking half the frame. She'd used the jasmine perfume. For a moment, my brain betrayed me and tried to overlay 100 good memories onto the bad picture in front of me. I stepped past her into 714. The room looked like a magazine. White duvet, fruit bowl like a still life, ocean a square of blue glass beyond the balcony. I felt something cold and methodical click into place inside me. I teach problem solving. Step 1, define the problem truthfully. Step 2, control the variables. "Sit," I said, and surprised myself with the steadiness of my voice. They sat. Sarah slipped in behind me and stood by the TV credenza, phone down by her thigh, camera on. Quiet witness. "How long?" I asked. Nora's mouth opened and closed. "A few weeks," she said finally, the syllables shredded. Adam jumped in, faster than was wise. "It was a mistake," he said. "We got close working on the grant." Lines blurred. We planned to end it. I looked from one to the other and felt something pass across my face I don't know how to name. A kind of pity for the version of them they thought they were. "You booked a 5-star hotel to end it?" I said. "That's an expensive goodbye." "Please," Nora whispered. Don't ruin our careers." She swallowed. "We'll take consequences at home, just not at school." I let the silence stretch until it almost snapped. Then I said the sentence that changed everything. "Then tell the truth on camera now and sign it." Adam's chin jerked. "That's extortion." "No," I said. "That's documentation. You want privacy?" Privacy looks like honesty with the one person who didn't lie. They looked at each other and saw the same trap laid by their own feet. Sarah slid 2 printed pages from her bag, simple statements acknowledging an affair, the dates, the deception about Chicago. She placed them on the desk with a pen like she was setting a scalpel. Nora signed first. Her hands shook so hard she had to steady her wrist. Adam stared at his name as if his own letters might crawl off the page and make a run for it. He signed. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it, because some part of me still believes in small mercies. "Now one more thing." I picked up my phone. They didn't notice. People in shock only see the thing that hurts the loudest. I toggled the stream to private test and aimed the lens not at their faces, but at our joined hands on the table. The one symbol, a board, a court, and a town will believe. 2 signatures. Black ink, still wet. "When we talk to Emily," I said gently, "I want there to be no 'Jack invented this' later." Adam went statue still. "Emily?" "Your wife," I said. "She deserves to hear you, not me." Nora started to cry, the quiet, ugly kind that makes your shoulders bounce. Adam swore under his breath. I waited. "People tell you anger is hot. I've learned there's a colder version, focused, like the calm on a firing range." Sarah made the call. Emily answered on the second ring. She'd been in another state with her mother, a detail I only knew because my wife had mentioned it offhand last Tuesday like the set piece in a story she hadn't told me yet. "Emily," I said when her face appeared. "I'm sorry. I wish there were a better way." For a breath she smiled, thinking I was calling for some school committee detail. Then she saw Nora, the robe, Adam's shoulder, the room behind them, and I watched a human being understand a new universe in 1 second. Adam tried to talk first. He shouldn't have. He started with, "Listen," and "It's not what," and "We were going to," the words men say when they've failed to imagine a world where they lose. Emily held up a palm. "I'm not your audience," she said, voice steady in a way that made me think of steel cables. "I'm your wife, and I'm done." She hung up. The room made a sound I've never heard a room make, something between a click and a thud. Nora sank onto the edge of the bed like someone had taken out her bones. Adam stared at the blank screen as if he could will Emily back by squinting. I picked up the signed pages, slipped them into a folder, and stood. "I booked 712, I said. "I'll be next door for the night." "Tomorrow at 9, we talk about the school. You two can decide if you want to tell the truth there too, or if you want the truth to find you." I walked to the connecting door, slid the latch, and stepped into the quiet rectangle that would be mine for the next 12 hours. When the door clicked shut, I realized I hadn't taken a full breath since I knocked. Sarah came in a minute later. She didn't say, "Are you okay?" No one is. She just put a cup of tap water in my hand and said, "You did what you came to do." "Not yet," I said. "Tomorrow is for the part that doesn't heal with time." I slept 3 hours. I dreamed I was teaching my seniors how to calculate the impulse of a collision, and the chalk kept snapping in my hand. At 8:58 a.m., I toggled the stream again. Not public, not viral, just visible to one group. The school board's secured channel Sarah had access to from her work on campus security drills. I set the phone on the table where the signatures had been. I didn't want faces. I wanted voices, dates, facts. At 9 a.m., I knocked on 714. When Nora opened, she looked like someone who'd gone 12 rounds with regret. Adam looked like fury with nowhere to land. I stepped in. I set a worn manila envelope on the table like a teacher sets an exam. "This is the part where we choose the future," I said. "Tell the board the truth in your words, and I will not say a single thing to a single student. Lie, and you won't need me." This town runs on rumor faster than physics ever did. Adam squared his jaw. "You're not going to ruin me." I held his eyes. "I'm not going to ruin you," I said. "You did that. I'm going to document." He looked away first. Nora spoke. It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't theatrical. It was, finally, plain. Dates, choices, the hotel, the lie about Chicago, the broken trust. Adam mumbled a version with fewer adverbs and more excuses. I didn't correct him. The file saved. Sarah nodded once. I ended the recording and slipped the phone into my pocket. "Thank you," I said again, and meant it again, because truth, even late, is better than a lie that lives forever. When I reached for the door, Nora said my name the way you say help without asking for it. "Jack." I paused. "I don't know why I did," she started, then stopped because we both knew there are answers and there are explanations, and they are not the same thing. "I am sorry," she said finally, voice small. "That doesn't fix anything." But I'm sorry, I nodded. "Sorry matters," I said, "but choices matter more." I stepped into the hall. As the latch clicked behind me, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Principal Rogers, time-stamped while we were talking. "Board called an emergency session for next week. You okay to speak?" I looked at the carpet and the ocean and the man in the mirror of the wall sconce and realized something that surprised me with its clarity. I wasn't afraid of the room I'd have to walk into anymore. The worst room was the one I'd already been standing in. "Tell them I'll be there," I typed, "and I'll bring the truth." Not because the hotel bed was bad, but because silence is louder when you've just had the ground pulled out from under you. At 2:17 a.m., the air conditioning clicked on, and I watched the digital clock bleed its red numbers into the dark like a slow, steady wound. At 6:03 a.m., I made a decision. No theatrics, no shouting in hallways. I was going to do what I teach my sophomores to do in lab: gather data, test a hypothesis, document results, and only then publish. By 9, Sarah had coffee in her hands and an expression I'd seen on her since she was 16, and dismantled a bad rumor with 3 screenshots and a single raised eyebrow. "What's the move?" she asked. "We give everyone one last chance to tell the truth," I said, "and we record who refuses." I texted Megan. "Breakfast? 9:30. Your call if Adam joins." "I want clarity," she replied with a single word. "Okay." The resort's breakfast room was glass and sunlight and knives hidden in smiles. Megan came in first, dressed like an apology. Soft sweater, no makeup, hair pulled back like old times. Adam drifted behind her a minute later, athlete's posture, blue polo, a jaw set so hard I could hear his molars from across the room. "I'll go order," Sarah murmured, drifting toward the counter and, more importantly, to a two-top with a perfect reflection line in the window glass. Her phone's black screen looked like a mirror. It wasn't. Megan sat, folded and unfolded her napkin. "Jack, don't start with, I never meant to hurt you," I said evenly. "You meant to do exactly what you did. The question is whether you'll own it." Adam exhaled a laugh made of arrogance and fear. "We're adults. We made a mistake. This ambush in a hotel? That's not how grown-ups handle things. Grown-ups don't lie about conferences," I said. "Grown-ups don't call their spouse oblivious through a wall." Megan flinched. A small, honest thing. "Here's what happens next," I continued. "You both tell the truth. To Emily. To the people whose lives you intersect. No excuses. No, we drifted apart. The full sentence. We lied. You do that, and I keep this contained to the circle it already touched. You'll blow up our jobs?" Adam's eyes flashed. "I'll do nothing," I said. "Truth has a remarkable habit of traveling on its own." "I'm a physics teacher, Adam. I respect momentum." Silence. Dishes clinked. Somewhere, cutlery scraped porcelain like a nervous tick. Megan's hands trembled. "I'll tell Emily," she whispered. "I will. Today. But please, not the students. They deserve better than our mess." "They do," I said. "Which is why I'm here quietly and not back home, loudly." Her shoulders broke. She nodded. Adam stared at the table, calculating angles that had stopped working. We ate like people eating around a bomb. When it was done, I stood. "You'll both email me your truth," I said. "Plain, signed, no hedging, not for leverage, for closure. Then I'm driving home." Adam snorted. "Just like that? You win the moral Olympics and leave with the gold." "Just like that," I said, "because I have a classroom full of kids who still think integrity is a word that means something because I tell them it does." I left them with their check and their wreckage. The drive back felt shorter. Maybe because I'd traded rage for the heavy, clear calm that follows a storm. Sarah was quiet most of the way, then said, "You know there's a school board meeting waiting for you when we hit town." "I know," I said. "And Megan?" "She'll have to tell the truth twice," I said. "Once to Emily, once to herself." My phone buzzed near the state line. An email from Megan. 3 paragraphs. No poetry, no blame. A sentence that started with "I" and ended with "I'm sorry." It was the right length for the wrong thing. Adam's confession came 5 minutes later. Hedged, polished, the word "mutual" deployed like a shield. I filed them both in a folder called "After" and kept driving. The emergency board session was crowded enough to raise the room temperature. I brought my binder like armor, commendations, 2 state-level science grants, 5 years of National Honor Society advisorship, Handwritten thank yous from kids who learned to love math because we launched bottle rockets at 7 a.m. in the March cold. Eleanor Simmons, our board president, didn't waste sentences. "Mr. Wilson, you first." I didn't perform. I told the story straight. When I got to the sentence about students watching us to learn what adulthood looks like, a senior named Zoe wiped her eyes with the sleeve of a hoodie that still smelled like solder and lab nights. Megan followed. She didn't ask for pity. She asked for time, for containment, for the space to do the right thing going forward. It didn't move the room, it softened it. Adam went last and tried to lawyer a room full of people who teach teenagers for a living. We recognized deflection on the first syllable. He mentioned private lives. He mentioned mistakes. He did not mention accountability until Eleanor asked, "What do you take responsibility for, specifically?" He didn't answer the question. People remember that. The board deliberated. Came back with what everyone already felt in their bones. I stay. They step aside, administrative leave, then placement elsewhere if possible. Not punishment, consequence. When it ended, I walked out into a hallway perfumed with coffee, floor wax, and murmurs. Parents shook my hand. A kid from my first year, now home from college, hugged me, surprised at himself. In the corner, Megan stood with her mother. She looked like a person who'd finally seen the bill arrive at the table and realized dessert had been very expensive. We didn't speak. Some silences are mercy. A week can stretch like a rubber band. Ours did. News articles, PTA emails, 100 different versions of the story curling through town like smoke. I taught my classes. We built a Rube Goldberg machine big enough to take over the back hallway. At 7:12 on Friday, Zoe burst into my lab with the good kind of tears. Nationals. We were going. I said yes to a thing I'd been leaning toward in the hours I didn't sleep. The magnet school offer 2 states over. A fresh lab. A robotics budget that wouldn't require begging the bake sale committee. It felt like betrayal to even consider leaving, until Principal Rogers put his hand on my shoulder and said, sometimes staying would be the selfish thing. So I scheduled movers, signed papers, put the for sale sign in dirt I'd mowed for a decade. 3 months to the day after the hotel, I signed one more set of papers in a quiet office that smelled like printer toner and endings. The divorce was mercifully clean. Megan didn't fight me. I didn't scorch her. We each kept what we could carry without it burning our hands. That night, as I taped up the last box in the living room, the doorbell rang. Megan looked smaller. Or maybe grief is a lens that shrinks people down to the parts of them that hurt. She asked to get the last of her things. We drifted past each other like ghosts, careful not to bump, as if contact would draw blood. At the door, she turned. "Is there any chance? Any at all?" I wanted to lie to make the moment kind. I didn't. "No," I said, "because love's not a feeling. It's a decision you make again and again." "And you decided?" She nodded. I handed her an envelope, a letter I'd written at 3:11 a.m., with more kindness than my daylight had. Not an invitation, a benediction. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not destroying me," she said. "You could have." "I didn't save you," I said. "You'll have to do that yourself." She left. I stood in the echo of a house that had held 10 years of laughter and Tuesday night pasta and the particular softness of winter mornings when you don't have to be anywhere yet. The next morning, the porch filled up with love. Students, colleagues, parents. A scrapbook heavy enough to anchor a ship. Posters that said, "Integrity matters and thank you, Mr. Wilson," and one that just said, "Go make more nerds." I cried the way men cry when they've run out of ways to stay composed. Head down, hand over eyes, laugh in it anyway. Across the street, Megan watched from behind a car door. We didn't wave. It felt right not to. I drove away. The town got small in the rearview mirror like all towns do when you decide to grow beyond your zip code. At the county line, I rolled the window down, let air move through the car, and said out loud to nobody, "Onward." The road answered in weather and distance and possibility. I don't believe in revenge. I teach physics. I believe in consequences, in beautiful equations that balance, in energy that changes form but never disappears. What we did to each other, what we did to ourselves, doesn't vanish. It becomes heat. It becomes light. It becomes a lesson measured not in demerits, but in who we are after. I'm not a hero. I'm a teacher who remembered to become a student again when life handed him a unit called humility and repair. Tomorrow I meet a new principal, a new lab, a stack of requisition forms, and, I hope, a kid who hates math just enough to fall in love with how it explodes a lemon into a tiny fireball when you wire it wrong. Tonight I drive. The sun is low and honest, and I'm finally free. It's been 6 months. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to hear the quiet rhythm of another heartbeat beside me. Sometimes I don't know if I miss Megan or the version of myself who believed nothing could ever break what we built. But then, the morning light hits the window of my new classroom, floor to ceiling, west-facing, and I see 30 kids bent over circuits and half-finished rockets, arguing about Newton's third law like it's a religion. And I realize something. I didn't lose my life. I changed classrooms. The new school is different, bigger, faster, sharper, but the kids are the same everywhere. Hope wrapped in hormones and questions. They still ask about black holes and heartbreak like they're the same phenomenon. Maybe they are. A few weeks ago, after class, one of my students, a quiet boy named Dylan, lingered behind. "Mr. Wilson," he said, fidgeting with his notebook, "how do you keep going? When someone you trusted breaks you?" The question landed like a stone in an old pond. I thought about the hotel room, the board meeting, the letter I gave Megan. Then I said the truest thing I've learned. You stop trying to rebuild what was. You build something new, stronger. Even if it starts small, he nodded like he understood. Even if he didn't yet. One day, he will. After he left, I sat in the empty lab, surrounded by the hum of machines cooling down. And I laughed, softly, not bitterly. Because somewhere between betrayal and forgiveness, I'd found something close to peace. Megan wrote once more. A postcard, not an email. It said, "I've started teaching art at a community center. The kids don't know who I used to be, and that's the best part. Thank you for letting me start over. No return address. Just the sketch of an ocean. Blue pencil on white." I didn't reply. Some stories end better when the last line is silence. On the anniversary of everything, Sarah visited. We sat on my porch with 2 mugs of coffee and the quiet between us that doesn't need to be filled. "You ever think about dating again?" she asked, teasing but not really. "Not yet," I said. "I'm still learning how to enjoy my own company." She smiled. "That's the hardest lesson. Maybe one day there'll be someone new, someone who meets the version of me that survived. But for now, the air is clean. The future feels wide. The past? It's just data now. Collected, analyzed, archived. The rest of my life starts here. With chalk dust on my sleeves, sunlight on the lab floor, and a single truth written on the whiteboard in blue marker. Integrity doesn't protect you from pain. It just lets you heal without shame, fade to black,